"Hey, sweetheart, can't you move any faster?" The voice cut sharp through the diner, making Hannah flinch so hard the cups on her tray rattled. Laughter followed, coarse and mean, as three men lounged in a booth near the window, their boots kicked up like they owned the place. One of them reached out and flicked the edge of her apron as she passed, grinning when she stumbled. The smell of coffee and bacon grease clung to the air, but no one tasted it now. Conversations had died, replaced by the low thrum of unease. The regulars, the ones who knew Hannah worked herself half to exhaustion every day, kept their eyes down, praying not to be noticed. "Careful, honey," the tattooed man sneered, his voice dripping mockery. "Wouldn't want you to spill on that pretty face." His friends howled like it was the funniest thing in the world. Hannah's throat tightened. She blinked hard, willing the tears not to fall. She'd balanced worse nights, carried heavier trays, endured customers who forgot she was human. But this wasn't just impatience. This was cruelty, deliberate and public, the kind meant to strip her down until there was nothing left. Her hands trembled, the tray shaking as if the weight of every bill, every sleepless night, every burden she carried was stacked on top of those plates. The diner door swung open with a soft chime. For a heartbeat, nobody looked. Then the boots came, heavy, steady, deliberate, crossing the threshold. Black leather jackets gleamed under the sunlight spilling through the windows, patches stitched across their backs, and silence gripped the room tighter than fear. At the front walked Jack, broad-shouldered, beard streaked with gray, his gaze sharp as a blade but calm as stone. Behind him, 6 more men filled the space, their presence enough to bend the air itself. They didn't swagger. They didn't speak. They simply were, and that was enough. The 3 tormentors shrank in their booth, pretending to study the laminated menus. Hannah froze by the counter, her knuckles white around her order pad. She felt the weight of Jack's eyes land on her, steady, unflinching, and for the first time that morning, she didn't feel invisible. Jack's glance slid to the men in the corner, then back to her. No words, just a quiet promise in his expression, "You're not alone anymore." He and 2 of his brothers slid into a booth, their silence louder than a shout. But the tattooed man wasn't done. As Hannah passed again, he muttered something vile, low and sharp, just enough for her to hear. She stopped mid-step, the tray trembling, heat rushing to her cheeks. This time, though, she wasn't the only one who heard. Jack's chair scraped against the floor as he stood, slow and deliberate, the sound echoing like thunder across the diner. When Hannah set the glass of cola on the table, the man grinned and shoved it over with his elbow. The dark liquid spilled fast, running across the table, dripping onto the floor, soaking into her shoes. She froze, rag in hand, heart pounding. Then she did what she always did. She bent down to clean it, cheeks burning as laughter echoed above her. That was when a hand, heavy and unmoving, landed on the man's shoulder. The laughter died in his throat. He looked up and found Jack standing over him, tall enough that his shadow swallowed the table whole. Jack's grip didn't tighten, didn't need to. It just rested there like iron. "She's working hard," Jack said. His voice was calm, steady, but so cold it cut through the air. "You don't treat people like that in here." The diner fell into silence. Every fork lowered. Every word caught in someone's throat. Hannah, crouched by the floor with a rag in her hands, held her breath. The thug forced out a laugh, weak, trying to act like he wasn't rattled. But Jack didn't move, didn't blink, didn't let go. Around him, the rest of the bikers had risen quietly from their seats. They didn't speak. They didn't have to. Their silence filled the room with a kind of law that didn't come from badges or courts, but from men who decided disrespect wasn't going to pass. The man's grin cracked. His friends shifted uneasily. The arrogance bled out of them in seconds. They fumbled cash onto the table, mumbled something about being late, and hustled toward the door, their boots too quick against the floor. The bell over the door jingled as they pushed outside, and only then did the room let out its breath. Voices started again, hushed and shaky, like a church after a storm. Hannah stayed frozen, her rag damp in her hand, her body trembling. She lifted her eyes and met Jack's. He gave her a single nod, then sat back down like nothing had happened. He didn't want thanks. He didn't need applause. His men followed his lead, slipping back into their booth, their presence no longer sharp but steady, protective, grounding. Hannah's chest swelled and ached all at once. Relief poured through her, mixed with gratitude so sharp it almost broke her. For weeks she had carried everything alone: the bills, the exhaustion, the quiet ache of never being seen. But now someone had noticed. Someone had stood up, and the simple fact of it felt like a door opening in the dark. The rest of the shift blurred by. The bikers stayed for breakfast, ordering stacks of pancakes and endless cups of coffee, their laughter rolling deep but never sharp, never at her expense. They treated her like a person, not a target. When it was time to leave, Jack stepped to the counter. He set down a tip so thick it made Hannah blink, more than she'd earned in 2 long shifts. She tried to push it back, shaking her head, but he slid it closer with a look that ended the argument. "Take care of your mom," he said softly, almost like a secret between them. Then he turned and walked out, the others falling in step behind him, leather and steel disappearing into the sunlight. Hannah stood still long after the bell above the door stopped ringing. Her hands shook as she folded the bills, clutching them like proof that it hadn't been a dream. The morning light slanted across the empty booths, painting the checkered floor gold. For the first time and longer than she could remember, her chest felt lighter. That day spread through town in whispers, not as a story of fear or violence, but of respect, of a group of men people thought they understood stepping in with quiet strength to protect a waitress when no one else had. It became a tale people told each other with a kind of reverence, not about power, but about decency. For Hannah, it became something more. A turning point. A reminder that even in her darkest hours, the world still carried people who would rise when it mattered. That kindness could wear leather and boots just as much as suits or uniforms. And so the diner went on. Coffee pots filled, plates clattered, voices rose and fell. But Hannah carried something different inside her. Because on the day she thought she would break, strangers reminded her that she mattered, and that she was never as alone as she feared.